What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved stars makes a move so shocking, so catastrophic, that it threatens to destroy the very image she's spent decades perfecting? This is not a scandal built on hearsay. This is not a random internet theory or a fleeting controversy that will vanish in a week. This is the real-time unraveling of Blake Lively's carefully protected public identity. The woman once seen as untouchable, classy, powerful, and poised is now facing what some insiders are calling the single biggest reputation crisis of her entire career. But how did we get here? How did the woman praised for her elegance and praised by fashion houses, directors, and fellow stars suddenly become the center of a spiraling media storm, legal scrutiny, and growing backlash from fans and celebrities alike? It began with a legal case, a quiet courtroom move that seemed insignificant at first. But behind the scenes, that case unlocked something deeper, something darker. Content creators who dared to ask questions started receiving subpoenas. Journalists digging into the details were met with silence or legal threats. Then a single misstep from Blake's team changed everything. A moment meant to silence critics instead amplified them, and suddenly the illusion shattered. Now the public is seeing a version of Blake Lively they were never meant to see. The cracks in her perfect brand are widening. Former allies are backing away. Hollywood insiders are whispering, and fans, they're angry, not just at what's been revealed, but at what might still be hidden. In this video, we're diving deep. We're unpacking the entire chain of events, from the legal filings to the celebrity reactions, the shifting media tone, and the terrifying possibility that Blake's biggest mistake wasn't what she did, but how she handled the fallout. This is the unraveling of Blake Lively, and this is a mistake she may never recover from. The whispers started subtly, background chatter on gossip blogs, speculation among Hollywood insiders, and coded shade thrown during red carpet interviews. But what was once easy to ignore has now evolved into something much more explosive. Blake Lively, once praised as Hollywood's golden girl and queen of style, is now facing the full force of a public unraveling. The charm, the perfection, the enviable brand she worked so hard to maintain, it's all starting to show deep, undeniable cracks. And insiders say it all goes back to one mistake. A catastrophic misstep that might have seemed calculated at the time, but has now set off a domino effect that even the most powerful PR agency can't contain. It started quietly, with legal documents, sealed hearings, and closed-door strategies. But now the fallout is public, very public. And in a world where perception is everything, Blake Lively is experiencing what might be the first truly irreversible blow to her carefully curated reputation. The timing couldn't be worse. Hollywood is shifting. The public is more media savvy than ever. And for someone who built an empire on likability, perfection, and prestige, the truth coming to light is far more damaging than the scandal itself. Let's go back to where this began, at least in the public's eyes. When Justin Baldoni's name first appeared in legal filings connected to Lively's inner circle, few thought it would grow into something this big. But behind the scenes, the drama had been brewing for years, according to multiple sources. A long-standing tension between the two had simmered under the surface of carefully worded interviews and polite red carpet run-ins. It was a dynamic powered by industry politics, personal history, and unspoken truths. The real shift came when legal proceedings surrounding a major defamation case began to leak. Documents revealed that Blake Lively wasn't just a passive figure caught in the crossfire. She was directly involved in decisions that had lasting consequences. It wasn't just about one incident, it was a pattern, a strategy. And once content creators and journalists began pulling the threads, the tapestry of her persona began to unravel. Social media, once a space where she ruled with viral red carpet photos and cheeky captions about her marriage to Ryan Reynolds, became the arena where criticism found a voice. Hashtags questioning her motives began to trend. Fan accounts that once celebrated her fashion sense were now dissecting her legal strategy. And then came the turning point, a misstep so bold, so tone-deaf, it shifted the narrative entirely. Instead of addressing concerns or allowing her legal team to respond quietly, Blake Lively doubled down in what many now call her PR disaster moment. Her team filed a subpoena targeting a prominent content creator who had reported on the defamation case. What was meant to silence a voice only amplified it. The content creator went public, turning what could have been a minor incident into a viral moment. TikTok exploded. Formerly Twitter threads dissected the legal filing line by line. YouTube videos exposed connections that were once just speculation. The reaction was immediate. Fans began to reevaluate everything from her early interviews to her public friendships with powerful Hollywood figures. Every moment was now being viewed under a microscope. Was the bubbly persona just a mask? Were the smiles carefully calculated? Even more damning were the resurfaced clips, older moments where Blake Lively had subtly thrown shade at other women in Hollywood moments that had once passed under the radar. In a post-#MeTooPost-accountability era, those clips took on a new weight. They weren't cute anymore, they felt manipulative, and the internet did not hold back. At the center of the chaos was her silence, for someone known for her witty social media presence and her ability to spin any story into a lighthearted joke. The sudden disappearance was deafening. No tweets, no posts, no appearances. Just a flurry of no comments and vague statements from unnamed representatives. It didn't help that at the same time new court filings suggested that other high-profile individuals could be dragged into the situation. Suddenly this wasn't just about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. It was about Ryan Reynolds, about Taylor Swift, about the hidden dynamics of illicit friendships and what really goes on behind the scenes of celebrity alliances. The media began speculating whether Blake's silence was part of a larger strategy, or whether it signaled that she had lost control entirely. Behind-the-scenes insiders claim her team was in panic mode, crisis PR meetings, confidential settlements, leaked text messages, alleged attempts to buy silence. Each move only added fuel to the fire. Journalists began digging deeper. Former assistants, stylists, and industry professionals started speaking out anonymously. The once sealed world around Blake Lively was crumbling, and the public was watching every moment. Even her marriage, once seen as the epitome of relationship goals, began to draw speculation. Where was Ryan Reynolds in all this? Why hadn't he defended her publicly? Was he distancing himself to protect his own brand, the same brand that has built billion-dollar partnerships with companies like Mint Mobile and Aviation Gin? Silence in this case was its own statement. By now, what was once a manageable PR hiccup had become an uncontrollable narrative. The media was no longer on her side. Entertainment reporters who used to praise her now published critical think pieces, questioning her values. Legal analysts started weighing in, suggesting that if certain documents are made public, as some judges hinted, they might be the consequences for Blake could be long-term, both professionally and personally. And perhaps the most haunting part of all this didn't have to happen. There were multiple points where a different decision might have changed the outcome. But ego, image control, and an underestimation of how fast the internet moves all contributed to the downfall. Now, even if she issues a statement, even if she pivots her image, the trust has been broken. Because this isn't just about one court case or one scandal, it's about the illusion of perfection breaking. The audience, the fans, feel betrayed not just by what she did, but by how calculated it all seems in hindsight. It's no longer just a PR problem. It's an identity crisis, and Blake Lively, the brand, is in a tailspin. Public opinion isn't. A courtroom, it moves fast, it demands accountability in real time. And when you stay silent for too long, people start writing your story for you. That's exactly what's happening now. Every day Blake Lively remains silent, the narrative becomes more cemented, more damning, more permanent. We're now in the aftermath of the storm's eye. The part where silence is more dangerous than a bad statement. The part where speculation becomes memory. This is where careers pivot or collapse, and the question everyone is asking, is this the mistake? She won't come back. From the unraveling didn't just stop with Blake Lively's silence, it metastasized into a full-blown reputational crisis. In the court of public opinion, silence is often interpreted as guilt or worse, arrogance. And for someone who has built an image on accessibility and authenticity, her radio silence left a vacuum the internet was all too eager to fill. The speculation wasn't just growing, it was mutating. Allegations, assumptions, fan theories, all of it came rushing in like a tidal wave. And Blake's PR team was drowning. The irony was painful. For years, Blake Lively had been admired as a media-savvy actress who could handle press better than most. She never seemed to misstep in interviews. Her Instagram feed was a carefully curated blend of luxury and relatability. Her marriage to Ryan Reynolds served as the internet's blueprint for the funny couple archetype. She was in many ways untouchable. But in the age of digital accountability, no amount of curated posts can shield someone from the consequences of a poorly handled scandal. What truly changed the temperature of the situation was a single unexpected move from the legal side of the Baldoni case. Justin Baldoni's lawyers filed a motion that hinted that there was potential collusion behind the scenes to suppress information. While they didn't name Blake Lively outright, the implications were loud, and in a court of law, implications matter. But in the court of public opinion, implications become headlines. Suddenly, every journalist, legal analyst, and commentary channel latched on. Did Blake Lively interfere? The secret communications her team tried to keep hidden. Is this the end of the Golden Girl era? These weren't fringe headlines anymore, they were front-page features. Even respected outlets that once championed Blake began covering the case, with sharper language, less forgiving angles, and an undertone of betrayal. It wasn't long before lawyers on social media, yes, even TikTok lawyers, began dissecting the court filings for the masses. Legal breakdowns of what certain terminology meant, interpretations of redacted lines. The internet was turning into a crowdsourced trial, and Blake wasn't showing up to defend herself. Then came the biggest jolt yet, a leaked internal memo from someone alleged to be connected to a PR firm Blake had previously worked with. The memo detailed strategic talking points for minimizing fallout, encouraging the use of third-party influencers to defend Blake's character, and urging media silence from close friends who might be subpoenaed. While the document's authenticity hasn't been legally confirmed, the damage was done. Screenshots spread like wildfire, and suddenly it looked like a cover-up. Whether it was or not became irrelevant. The narrative had landed. Fans were shaken. Blake's core fanbase, largely women who had admired her independence and branding mastery, began expressing disappointment. Influencers who once posted get the look content inspired by Blake now posted reaction videos titled "I can't support this anymore." A slow wave of unfollowing began, not just digitally but emotionally. People weren't just leaving her Instagram, they were leaving her side. One of the most devastating signs of this shift came from within Hollywood itself. A major fashion house once closely tied to Blake's red carpet legacy quietly dropped her from their fall campaign. No statement, no drama, just a swift and strategic disengagement. The message was clear: the industry was hedging its bets. Blake was no longer the guaranteed safe investment. Even Ryan Reynolds, whose social media had always been closely tied to Blake's persona, began shifting focus. More solo posts, less reference to his wife. Some even noticed that several comments referencing the scandal were left undeleted on his Instagram, which many interpreted as a quiet distancing. Whether it was intentional or just algorithmic noise didn't matter, the perception had changed. And then came the pivot: Blake's attempt to shift the narrative. She made a surprise appearance at a children's hospital, a move that under normal circumstances would have been met with warmth and applause. But this time the public saw it differently. Many called it a distraction tactic. Others pointed out the conveniently timed photo ops. The response was tepid at best and cynical at worst. What was once seen as altruism now looked like PR maneuvering. It was at this point that a longtime entertainment journalist published a scathing op-ed, one that drew on nearly 2 decades of industry observations. The piece didn't accuse Blake of any crime, but it did lay bare patterns: strategic vulnerability, image-first priorities, and a tight inner circle that doesn't allow for accountability. The op-ed was devastating not because it was aggressive, but because it was calm, measured, and deeply informed. It struck a chord, and it added intellectual weight to what fans were already feeling emotionally. Legal experts were also beginning to speak out on mainstream platforms, explaining that while Blake might not face criminal charges, the reputational damage could have longer-lasting consequences. In Hollywood, where public sentiment can dictate casting decisions, advertising deals, and overall industry favor, a scandal doesn't have to be proven in court to change someone's career, it just has to stick. At the same time, rumors began swirling that multiple talk shows had either postponed or pulled Blake Lively's appearances from their schedules. While networks cited scheduling conflicts, insiders whispered it was to avoid the elephant in the room, one they feared would overshadow any promotional campaign she was involved in. And still no direct response from Blake. Fans, critics, and industry analysts all waited for the inevitable. Would she issue a public statement? Would she grant a high-profile interview? Would she finally break the silence and take accountability, even partially? Instead, more court documents emerged, and these were different. One document appeared to show a private group text message thread between several individuals tied to Blake, discussing how to preempt potential stories from creators on YouTube and TikTok. While these texts remain under judicial scrutiny, the fact that they were even entered into evidence further damaged the public narrative. This wasn't just about damage control, it was now being viewed as suppression. It became increasingly difficult for anyone, even longtime defenders, to argue that this was all just a misunderstanding. The tone of public discourse shifted from what happened to how far will this go, and who else is involved. The true emotional impact, however, came when one of the previously unnamed content creators posted a tearful video explaining how the legal threats had affected their mental health. The creator, whose coverage had originally been respectful and commentary-based, revealed they were forced to hire a lawyer. They hadn't made accusations, only discussed the case using publicly available information, but they were treated like adversaries. The internet rallied around them, Hashtag supporting creators' rights trended for days. What had once been a celebrity versus celebrity feud now became a David and Goliath story, and Blake Lively was cast in the role of Goliath. This part of the story, the turning of public sympathy toward smaller independent voices, cemented the shift. Blake was no longer just under scrutiny. She was being actively rejected by an online community that had once celebrated her. What had started as a legal entanglement had spiraled into something unmanageable. The layers of miscalculation, from legal decisions to PR silence to reactive maneuvers, had created a blueprint for how not to handle a scandal in 2025, and at the center of it all stood a woman who had once been untouchable, now facing the cold truth of modern accountability. Because once the internet decides you're no longer authentic, no longer trustworthy, it doesn't matter how many years you've spent cultivating your brand. One mistake, especially a catastrophic one, can upend everything. Especially when that mistake isn't followed by humility, transparency, or growth. And now Blake Lively finds herself at a crossroads. She can either address the storm with honesty and vulnerability, or let the silence define her legacy. By now the walls were closing in. What had started as a minor legal dispute had ballooned into an all-consuming Hollywood scandal. Blake Lively, once revered for her poise and professionalism, was becoming a cautionary tale. The speed of her public fall from grace was stunning even by industry standards. And the most terrifying part, the backlash wasn't just coming from the public, it was now coming from within Hollywood itself. In a world where optics are everything, the whispers among A-list circles started getting louder. Executives began privately expressing concerns about future partnerships. Multiple sources from inside streaming giants hinted that Blake's name was no longer top of the list when it came to upcoming projects. And while no official statements were made, casting directors confirmed a quiet freeze was beginning. Not a boycott, not an exile, but something worse: strategic silence. There's no red carpet for a reputation in repair mode. And for Blake, this wasn't just about saving face. It was about survival in an industry that trades on image, relatability, and trust. As agents and managers scrambled to protect their own clients from getting caught in the storm, one thing became clear: being too close to Blake Lively was now a risk. Then came the subtle yet deeply symbolic move from Taylor Swift. For years, the Lively-Reynolds-Swift friendship had been a staple of pop culture. Fans adored the glimpses of their tight-knit bond, vacation photos, birthday tributes, support at events. But just as Blake's legal drama reached a boiling point, Taylor made a quiet but undeniable statement. She removed several posts that featured Blake or referenced their friendship. Some of these were collaborations or behind-the-scenes moments that had once generated headlines. The erasure was subtle but deliberate. And in an era where Taylor's fanbase tracks every digital move, the message was loud and clear. By the end of the week, fan accounts were ablaze with speculation. Did Taylor Swift just distance herself from Blake? Friendship over? Did she know what was coming? The absence of denial only fueled the theories. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's team had gained serious momentum. Publicly, they maintained professionalism. But legal analysts noted the subtle confidence shift in their filings. They were no longer playing defense. And with every filing that referenced sealed text messages or undisclosed group chats, the sense of dread grew around what might still be revealed. It didn't help that journalists had begun digging into past stories about Blake's behavior. On set, a resurfaced blind item from years ago suddenly reappeared on Reddit, accompanied by anonymous DMs from assistants and stylists who hinted that Blake's public charm masked a far more controlling persona behind the scenes. Again, nothing confirmed, but perception is everything. And with each post, the distance between glamorous star and calculated operator grew. The narrative shift wasn't just digital, it was personal. A longtime costume designer who had worked with Blake onto separate productions gave an anonymous interview to a podcast detailing how image management was always the priority. The designer didn't accuse Blake of illegal behavior, but described an environment where team members were pressured to stay on brand, even if it meant pushing uncomfortable boundaries. Fans began to listen differently to these stories. What once might have been seen as perfectionism now looked like manipulation. And then came a dramatic twist that no one saw coming. One of Blake Lively's closest former collaborators posted a cryptic quote on Instagram: "You never really know someone until they start seeing consequences." The comment section exploded. Fans quickly speculated who it was directed at, and given the timing, no one questioned it for long. Public figures began to distance themselves too. A popular fashion influencer who had long supported Blake's style partnerships went on record during a live stream saying, "I love her past work, but I can't keep ignoring the red flags. Something feels off." That influencer's comments went viral, getting picked up by digital outlets and turning into Think pieces across TikTok and YouTube. Even the comedy world often used as a cultural barometer weighed in. A prominent late-night host made a sly remark during a monologue. Blake Lively's PR team is working overtime, but even Chad wouldn't take that job right now. The audience laughed, but the message was clear. She had become fair game for public criticism. This wasn't just a wave of backlash. It was a tidal shift in how Blake was perceived across all facets of the entertainment world. And with each passing day, the possibility of regaining her former standing seemed more remote. Perhaps the most damning moment came when a widely respected entertainment attorney, not involved in the case, gave an interview saying that Blake's legal strategy appeared designed more for silencing and intimidation than truth-seeking. While this was just one expert opinion, it was enough to ignite a deeper conversation. In media circles, articles soon emerged asking, was Blake trying to bury the truth, and if so, why? The bigger question became, what is she so desperate to keep hidden? This speculation sent the internet into overdrive. Theories, timelines reconstructed, message threads, and possible insider leaks began circulating. Even though some were wildly speculative, the sheer volume created an overwhelming sense that something enormous was still under wraps. Meanwhile, public support for Justin Baldoni surged. Not because he spoke out, but because he didn't. His calm, measured, silent stance began to contrast sharply with the chaos surrounding Blake's legal and PR efforts. As one creator put it, he's not reacting, he's letting the truth speak for itself. And that's powerful. It's important to note no criminal charges have been filed against Blake Lively. This isn't about guilt or innocence in a courtroom. This is about narrative, about how fast public opinion can turn when silence feels strategic, when actions don't match a brand's promises, and when a person who once seemed untouchable appears to crumble under scrutiny. Her supporters argue that much of this could still be explained, that context could shift everything. But in today's media environment, context doesn't always get the spotlight optics do. And the optics right now are disastrous. The phrase career-ending mistake is thrown around too easily in digital discourse. But when it comes to Blake Lively, this moment feels different. It's not just about a mistake, it's about the choices made afterward, the silencing of creators, the lack of transparency, the growing pile of circumstantial implications that suggest something deeper than a PR blunder. This wasn't just a bump in the road, this was a calculated decision that triggered an avalanche. And no matter how well-crafted the comeback might be, the cracks in her foundation are now visible to everyone. As more documents loom in court and creators continue to speak out, one thing is undeniable: Blake Lively is no longer seen as a victim of internet overreach. She's now at the center of a storm she helped create and may not be able to escape. The story isn't over, in fact, it may just be getting started. At the height of her career, Blake Lively seemed untouchable. She had it all: critical acclaim, commercial success, a carefully curated public image, and a seemingly flawless family life. Her elegance, intelligence, and mastery of media made her appear invincible in a business where even the most beloved stars could fade overnight. But in the end, it wasn't a scandal involving criminal charges or a viral slip-up that triggered the collapse. It was something far more damaging: a slow, calculated unraveling that exposed the machinery behind the image. The mistake wasn't just legal, it was personal. It was the decision to go silent when transparency was needed. It was the choice to pursue control over narrative instead of authenticity. And it was the belief that legacy and likability would shield her from the wave of public accountability that has taken down far more powerful figures. Blake's story isn't a simple one. She's not a villain, nor is she an innocent bystander. She exists in the murky middle, the space where ambition, influence, and fear intersect. But this moment in her career serves as a powerful reminder: no brand, no matter how beautiful or beloved, is immune to scrutiny. Especially not when it starts to look like that brand was built on silent suppression and selective truth. Her legacy is now in flux. For some, Blake will always be Serena Vander Woodson, or the red carpet icon who turned heads with every appearance. But for others, and this group is growing rapidly, she'll be remembered as the celebrity who chose the wrong battle at the wrong time and underestimated just how fast the world could turn. Whether she can come back from this remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the version of Blake Lively the public once knew, she's already gone.